I've given this sermon, I gave a sermon much like this, not this exact one, but much like this back in 2018, and it seems like I just did it. And occasionally when there's a holiday coming up or something that people might consider a lot of fun or something they want to do, it's always good to look into what are the origins? Why do people celebrate certain things? When I was a young man, I was in school, St. Patrick's Day was a big deal. It was something that people would wear green, they would wear hats, they would have these little slogans, they would have leprechauns on. It's just amazing how people get wrapped up in these things. And I'll never forget a fellow that I knew came up and he pinched me, and I said, "What was that all?" I didn't know. I wasn't used to that. And he says, "You're not wearing green, so I pinched you." And it's just an old superstition. You wear green or you get pinched on St. Patrick's Day. And this pinching began in the 1700s. And it's because there was a belief in leprechauns, and you can't see leprechauns. Leprechauns can't be seen. So if they can't be seen, my question was always, how do we know what they look like? How do people have pictures of them if they were invisible, if you can't see them? You see, so even there's not truth. And, the God that I worship wants to be worshiped in spirit and in truth. And so if there's anything false, if there's anything that's not true, why would I want to have anything to do with it? And so this whole thing about St. Patrick's Day and the things that go on, this belief in leprechauns that can't be seen, legend says that wearing green makes us invisible to the leprechauns, so they can't pinch you. That's exactly right. So if that's the case and you don't wear green, somebody sees you, they're going to pinch you if they see that you're not wearing green. Well, I don't have on any green today. And I kind of did that on purpose. And today's not St. Patrick's Day. But, the other thing is, where did this come from? Why do people do this? What causes a whole nation, the United States, and other countries to get so involved in this stuff? Today, when St. Patrick's Day comes, which is March 17th, if you go to a restaurant, you might find that they have green drinks. They might serve alcoholic beverages that are green. I've seen green mashed potatoes, which look gross. They might have mashed cauliflower that's green. Corned beef and cabbage is a big thing on St. Patrick's Day. They have parades and festivals, and it's just unbelievable the things that go on. Millions of people in New York City come together for a St. Patrick's Day parade every year. And it's just hard to believe that these things happen. But there's something else that happens on St. Patrick's Day, and that is, a lot of people drink tons of alcohol. And when I say tons, I mean literally tons. And we're going to look at some statistics here in just a moment. In fact, let's just look at them now. Let's just take a look. These are some statistics for 2022. This is their anticipated view of what's going to happen based on other years. And they say 54% of Americans plan to celebrate in 2022. That's over half. Now, let's continue on. Let's see. I've got a wrong note here. There we go. $5.87 billion will be spent on the holiday. $5.87 billion just spent on St. Patrick's Day. How do you do that? Well, that's through cards and things like that. People buy St. Patrick's Day. I've never been given a St. Patrick's Day card, but people buy cards and they send letters and they do all these types of things. So next, 80% of celebrators plan to wear green. That's because they don't want to get pinched, right? And it's also to play along with the holiday and the superstition. Next, 34% of Americans plan a special dinner for St. Patrick's Day. I would have never dreamed that either. Typically it's other holidays where they get together and do that, but 34% plan a special dinner. 60 pounds of dye is used for the Chicago River. I'm sure we've all seen pictures of the Chicago River where they put this dye in it and they turn it green. Well, once I found that out, I said 60 pounds doesn't sound like a lot of dye. It doesn't sound like much. Have you ever been there and seen the Chicago River? It's big. It's a large river. They have these big drawbridges that go across, and so that the boats can pass through. And there are actually locks and channels where they can go out into Lake Michigan from there. And it's amazing that they have to raise you up to the level of Lake Michigan to get you into it. And it's really neat to see that work. But this 60 pounds of dye for the Chicago River, look at this next stat. The green dye that they put in the river lasts for 5 hours. That's it. But I thought this was astounding. It costs $133 per minute to dye the river green. So I did the math. That's $7,980 per hour for a total of $39,900 just to dye the river green. What a waste of money. Could you imagine if you took that $39,000, almost $40,000, and just put it to God's work? What would it do? Or how many people would that feed in a third world country, right? If they just sent it over there. Next, another statistic, just a few more here. It's third among the most popular drinking days. Remember I said tons of drinking? And so one of those drinking days is New Year's Eve. That's one that beats St. Patrick's Day. What do you think the other one would be? Oh, Cinco de Mayo, somebody says. Anybody else? Any others?
4th of July.
4th of July is one. Well, they don't. What's that? Somebody said Christmas. No, it's Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras, imagine that. So the only 2 days that beat St. Patrick's for drinking alcoholic beverages is New Year's Day and Mardi Gras. Next, it's the first most popular for drinking beer, up to 174% over normal. Isn't that amazing? Then I've got a note here in my outline. It says the spirits, they call hard alcohol spirits, 153% increase on that day. So, there's a reason why they call it spirits. Because it causes you to do things that we shouldn't do. Next, 13 million pints of Guinness are sold worldwide. Guinness is a type of beer that's supposed to be, I guess it's a beer from Ireland. I'm not sure. I didn't look into it. But, I've heard of this beer, but 13 million pints worldwide, which actually equals 3.25 million gallons. I said millions. I should have knocked that S off of there when I did these slides. Imagine that, 3.25 million gallons of just one brand of beer. Is that abuse? I would say. On St. Patrick's Day in the United States, someone dies from an alcohol-related car crash every 38 minutes on St. Patrick's Day. 63% of fatal St. Patrick's Day car crashes involve a drunk driver. What's that tell you? After considering these things, I want you to hear what this, what the Catholic authorities say about this. So remember, St. Patrick, who normally names saints? It's the Catholic Church. So let's see what the authority on saints, quote unquote, on today has to say about St. Patrick. And this is from the Catholic Online News Consortium. It says, the most kids know of St. Patrick's Day is that you must wear green or you'll get a pinch from your friends. That's what happened to me in school. Adults see the day as an occasion to celebrate, sometimes with green beer and other assorted alcoholic beverages. However, few really know what they are celebrating or why the holiday is so important, particularly in Americas. I find this with every holiday. People just go along, they celebrate, they make these things a part of their lives. They make a big deal. There's a lot of hoopla surrounding these things. Thousands, millions of dollars spent, billions of dollars spent on these things every year. And we don't know why. It's just, my buddy's doing it, I think I'll do it too. How many of us were asked by our parents, if your friend jumped off a bridge, would you jump off with them? That's what's happening. That's what happens today. People follow whatever feels good, whatever looks good, whatever seems fun. But this consortium goes on, this news consortium. Let's look at this thought continues. It says, March 17th is when Patrick died. St. Patrick is a saint of the Catholic Church, and his holy day is the day of his death and subsequent entrance to heaven, rather than the day of his physical birth. It says, after spending most of his adult life converting the pagans of Ireland to Christianity, St. Patrick went to his reward on March 17, 1461 AD. So they're teaching the immortality of the soul. That's what they believe. Of course, that's what the Catholic Church teaches. That is a Catholic doctrine that Protestants have adopted. But let's keep going. It continues. St. Patrick used the shamrock to preach about the Trinity. Many claim the shamrock represents faith, hope, and love, or any number of other things. But it was actually used by Patrick to teach the mystery of the Holy Trinity and how three things, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, could be separate entities, yet one in the same. Obviously, the pagan rulers of Ireland found Patrick to be convincing because they very quickly converted to Christianity. Is this true? This comes from a Catholic authority, and this is what they're presenting as truth. But really, what is the truth about this? This is what I was taught this in school. I always thought that St. Patrick was some kind of a person that went into another place. If you ask most people, they'll say, yeah, he taught the Trinity. He went in other places, used the shamrock, the three leaves. I sat in a church one day that I was in, and it happened to be St. Patrick's Day, and they had a shamrock there, or a three-leaf clover, whatever you want to call it, and they were talking about that. And it really bothered me. It really bothered me. That they actually told that for the children's story in the church. Well, these things which were taught about St. Patrick actually didn't come about until about 500 years ago. This isn't the origin of St. Patrick. It was the Catholic priest Jocelyn who wrote about St. Patrick in 1310 AD. And he ignored most of what the truth was about Patrick. Actually, this is where all the fables started coming about. Was his background Catholic? Did he have a Catholic history? What's the truth about this person? Well, his real name was not Patrick at all. It was Maewyn Succat. That's kind of a strange name, Maewyn Succat. And the history shows that he was actually Scottish. He wasn't Irish. Now, it's hard for me to tell the difference. I can't tell the difference between a Scottish and Irish accent, and it's just hard for me. I'm sure over there they'd be highly offended if I said that. They'd probably be offended. It's kind of like when you're in New York or New Jersey or Virginia and West Virginia, right? It's a huge deal. But history shows that he was Scottish instead of Irish, and he became known as Patrick. Probably, most authorities say most likely it was because of the area that he was from in Scotland. And there's a book called The Ancient British and Irish Churches, and I want you to see what this book has to say about St. Patrick. It's just a quick statement. It says a lot more. This is from the British and Irish Churches, page 127. This is him speaking about himself. This is a quote from Maewyn Succat, who came to be known as St. Patrick. I was almost 16 years of age and taken to Ireland in captivity with many thousand men. Now, page 70 of this book, I looked through it. You can actually, at one time you could get this from the Stanton Public Library. And is the library open now? I don't even know. I haven't been there since the pandemic. I know they shut down for a while. But this same reference, it points out that, I'm just going to read this. While in slavery, Patrick gave his heart to God, and after 6 years of servitude, he escaped, returning to his home in Scotland. But he could not forget the spiritual need of the people that took him captive. In other words, they took him captive. He gets back home and he says, wait a minute, those people need to know about God, right? So this says a lot about the character of him. He was concerned about those who took him captive. Jesus says we should pray for those who persecute you. Well, evidently this man, Maewyn Succat, who came to be known as Patrick, was concerned about those who were persecuting him and his family. So after 10 years, he went back to Ireland as a missionary of the Celtic Church. Now, I know a lot of us, when we think of Celtic, we might think of something dark and disturbed. Certain things might come to mind. So let's look at the truth about what St. Patrick believed. Okay? We're going to look, and this reference is, let's see, the Catholic, well, I can't read that reference for some reason, but this comes from a book about the medieval church. St. Patrick actually rejected the merging of church and state. Does that sound like a Catholic? No, it doesn't. So just ask yourself these questions as we go through this. The Catholic Church is both religious and political, so there's no separation. So it sounds like this guy Patrick, or Maewyn Succat, he certainly was at odds with the Catholic Church here. Number two, he believed in John 18:36. What's John 18:36? Let's take a look in the PowerPoint. It says, Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world." Well, Patrick believed that God's kingdom didn't have anything to do with supporting this world as it is. I mean, we pay our taxes and things like that, but it's not part of what this world represents. Next, he kept the seventh-day biblical Sabbath as a day of rest. That's interesting to me. That's certainly not Catholic, because it was the Roman power that changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday, right? And the interesting thing is, many will tell you that Christians changed the Sabbath, but we know that they didn't. We know that wasn't the case. It was the Roman power. In fact, the Bible in Daniel chapter 7, verse 25 indicates that the Roman power would do that, intending to change times and law. Well, let's continue on. He rejected the teaching of an immortal soul. Wow, this all sounds familiar to me. He rejected the merging of church and state. He believed in John 18:36, "My kingdom is no part of this world," said Jesus. He kept the seventh-day biblical Sabbath as a day of rest. He recognized he wasn't supposed to work that day. He rejected the teaching of the immortality of the soul. And this is from the book Truth Triumphant, by the way. You can find some of this information. And he didn't believe in an eternal burning hell. He believed that we return to the dust, as the Bible said. That's interesting. Yet, he was hijacked by a group of people that said, no, he went to preach something to another group of people. But let's continue. Look at point number 5. He rejected the doctrine of the Trinity. Well, wait a minute. Legend has it the Catholic Church said that he went to these other places to preach the Trinity. What do we believe? What are we going to believe? He believed in the one true God. Number 6, he kept the biblical diet of Leviticus chapter 11 and Deuteronomy 14 that says we should only eat animals that have a split hoof and chew the cud. And if it's a fish, we should only eat it if it has fins and scales. I find it amazing. He would fit right in here at Prophecies of Hope. So far, he would fit right in with what the Bible's telling me. But let's continue. Oops, I don't know how 7 and 8 got on the same screen, but they did. So he did not worship idols. He didn't worship saints, and he did not worship Mary. He believed in 1 Timothy 2:5. And I had those backwards, didn't I? 1 Timothy 2:5 says this, "For there is one God and one mediator between God and men, the man, Christ Jesus." You see, Patrick rejected the teaching of a confessional, that we go to an earthly priest, because he believed in a priest in heaven, in our heavenly priest. And he recognized Jesus as our high priest. So he also rejected Sunday Mass, because he believed in the Sabbath. he would have rejected that. Next point. He rejected the merging of, he believed in full immersion baptism. What does the Catholic Church teach? They teach a sprinkling at infancy, that you would just sprinkle a little water instead of full immersion. This man certainly wasn't a Catholic. There's no doubt about it. And number 10, he rejected the doctrine of transubstantiation. Transubstantiation, you've heard me say it before, but for those of you who may be tuning in for the first time, it's a doctrine that the Catholic Church teaches that when they have they call it a wafer and the cup, that wafer or the bread and the cup literally turn to Jesus' flesh and blood. And they think that they literally eat his flesh and drink his blood. And that's really a dangerous doctrine. It really is. In his book, Truth Triumphant, this guy, B.G. Wilkinson, shares more about St. Patrick, or this Maewyn Sukkot. Here's what he says. It was in AD 596 that Pope Gregory sent a group of monks into England to try to bring the Celtic Church under the authority of Rome. But the Celts refused to acknowledge Gregory's authority and rejected all of the teachings of the Roman Church, which were not biblical. Well, what is that list? Let's look at it again. I'm going to back up. He rejected the merging of church and state. He believed that God's kingdom was no part of this world. He kept the seventh-day biblical Sabbath as a day of rest. He rejected the teaching of the immortality of the soul. He rejected the doctrine of the Trinity. He kept the biblical diet found in Leviticus and Deuteronomy 14. He did not worship idols, saints, or Mary. He believed in 2 Timothy 2:5 that there's one mediator between God and men, the man Jesus Christ. He believed in the full immersion baptism, and he rejected the doctrine of transubstantiation. How do we get from here to what we're seeing people are taught to believe today? How do churches get from the biblical messages here to what even Protestants have adopted today? Well, let's face it, the Protestant churches came out of Catholicism. I'm glad that they came out of that and came to understand certain things, and that Martin Luther nailed those 95 theses to the door of Wittenberg Cathedral. What a blessing that was. What a bold move that was. God was behind that man, there's no doubt. And God is behind, I believe he was behind many of these Protestant reformers that came out of Catholicism and was recognizing that these things are wrong. Now, don't get me wrong. We're not picking on the Catholic people. We're not saying that Catholic people are bad. But the leadership of the Catholic Church, the leaders know these things. They know which day the Sabbath is. They recognize the things about who Maewyn Sukkot or St. Patrick was. A lot of these things are done to make people believe certain things that simply aren't true. And it's sad. They recognize too, the leaders recognize that if you look deep into their doctrines and you talk to certain Catholic priests, you will find that they will tell you that, well, we recognize that we're not truly a priest. Well, then you're an imposter. If you know you're not truly a priest and you're passing yourself off as priest, and you're getting somebody to come to you to confess their sins to you, what nerve? This is exactly what the devil wants. He wants us to recognize earthly things rather than heavenly. Our priest is a heavenly priest. He is the high priest, and it's Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God. So let me get back to where I was. So this statement again, I want to look at that again, where Pope Gregory sent a group of monks to England to try and bring the Celtic Church under the authority of Rome. Well, I want to tell you, they're not through yet. The Roman Church isn't through yet. They want to bring everyone under their authority. And by our accepting certain doctrines that they teach, if we accept St. Patrick's Day and we accept that, we're going along with the authority of Rome. It says, but the Celts refused to acknowledge Gregory's authority, that's Pope Gregory, and rejected all of the teachings of the Roman Church, which were not biblical. Praise God for that. You don't reject the people, you reject the false doctrines. We can't do those things. St. Patrick's Day has nothing to do with the historical man, Patrick. Nothing to do with him. It's entirely based upon error. The point is, friends, we need to read our Bibles to make sure of the things that we're doing. If a holiday comes up and it has to do with something other than what God's Word says, ask yourself, if Jesus were here today with me, right here in person, would he celebrate St. Patrick's Day? Would he come in with a green robe on? You know, I mean, when I say that, it's almost, I feel like I'm blaspheming. But with anything that we do, ask yourself that. You know, and I've talked about these things before. It doesn't matter what it is, with a television program you watch. If Jesus were sitting on your sofa with you, would you watch that program? You know, some of my friends, they want to stop smoking. They know it's an unclean habit, and they want to quit. And they don't know what to do. And I say, you know, and they say they're Christian, and I believe they're Christian. They believe in Christ, they believe in God, but they have this habit and they can't get rid of it. How do I get rid of it? Ask Christ to help you. You're watching that TV program, ask him to help you. Help me, I like this. I want to watch what I'm watching. I like it. Help me to change it. Boy, the cigarette tastes so good. That's what people, I don't understand that, but that's what they say. And, well, help me get rid of it. If there's anything in your life that you can't picture Christ doing, maybe that's a good thing to gauge it by. I can't imagine Jesus standing with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. The Bible tells me that Jesus was born under the law and that he was the lineage is Jewish. He's in the line of David. Would Jesus eat pork or an unclean meat? How did ham come to be the Easter symbol? You know, I don't get these things. It has nothing to do with what Jesus would have done. So if it's good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for me. That's the attitude we should adopt. And the point is, again, we need to study and read our Bibles. We need to see what it says. We need to follow God's word rather than men's. And it's so easy to follow man. It's so easy to turn on YouTube or turn on the TV or say, you know, I'm not sure about what this means, so I'm just going to turn on YouTube and see if I can find a video, and you just start clicking on things. And, you know, I made the comment this morning, I didn't know I was going to say this today, but we were talking about, you know, just videos and how we can be misled by certain things so easily today. And Solomon in Ecclesiastes states, and I'm paraphrasing, to the making of many books there is no end, and the reading of them is wearisome to the soul. And I made the comment that said you should use that sometime. If Solomon were alive today, he would say that to the making of many videos there is no end, and the watching of them is wearisome to the flesh or to the soul. And it's true, because we can, if we're not rooted, if we're not grounded, if we don't know what this says, it's going to be so easy to follow any direction that we're pushed in. And I go back to when we talk about banking, and we've talked about these things before, I would study the bill, the dollar bill, to know what it looks like so I can spot a counterfeit. I don't go to a counterfeit and then look at the real one. This is the real thing. Pay attention to this before you hear any ministry, any minister, before you hear me or Brother Rick or Brother Ed talking to you from here. If it doesn't come from here, then there's no foundation to it. This has to be the foundation. We have to build on God's word. And, you know, I just had a thought. I'll just share this with you when I said the foundation. I have this thing about putting anything on top of my Bible. And I don't know. My Bible always has to be on top of everything, because I don't want anything, you know, this is the Word of God. And it has to set on the foundation of Christ. And it does. And a friend of mine said to me one day, well, I feel the other way. He says, I put the Bible at the bottom because it's the foundation of all of my beliefs. I thought that's pretty good. So either way it works, but I'm just funny about putting anything on top of my Bible. But the point is, again, follow God's word rather than men. Hosea, yes, I said Hosea. Hosea, I say Hosea. Chapter 4, verse 6, here's what it says. My people are destroyed for what? For lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge. I also will reject you from being priest for me, because you have forgotten the law of your God. I also will forget your children. Wow. Being destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Knowledge right now is on the increase. But it's not talking about knowledge of the world. You see, remember, Jesus said, my kingdom is no part of this world. There's a lot of knowledge in the world. Jesus' kingdom is based upon the foundation of truth. So we have to remember these things. They're destroyed for a lack of knowledge of God's word, for not knowing who God and his Son truly are, for not knowing what God and his Son truly stand for. And if I stand for anything else, then I'm not standing for the Father and his Son. Our scripture reading today was 2 Timothy chapter 4, and I'd like you to turn there with me. 2 Timothy chapter 4. Brother Rick read this at the beginning, and I just want you to, we know this text all too well. And how many times have we read a text and we find something new? It happens to me constantly. There might not be anything new in this text to you, but it's good to read it. So mine has a heading over top of this that says, Preach the Word. Who is the Word? Jesus Christ. So it says here in, 2 Timothy chapter 4, beginning in verse 1, it says, I charge you therefore before God and the Lord Jesus Christ, who will judge the living and the dead at his appearing and his kingdom. You see, that verse right there goes along with what St. Patrick or Maewyn Sukkot believed. He believed that the dead were really dead. Well, if it says here, he's coming to judge the living and the dead at his appearing and at his kingdom. Well, if the dead have already gone to heaven or hell, then they've already been judged. But it says that he's judging them at his appearing. Has Jesus come again yet? Not yet. So let's look at it again. I charge you therefore before God and the Lord Jesus Christ, who will judge the living and the dead at his appearing and his kingdom. Preach the word. Be ready in season and out of season. Convince, rebuke, exhort with all long-suffering and teaching. I want to stop there. We had, just recently, we were in a Bible study and somebody said something, and for some reason, I couldn't let it go. Because what was said was not found in God's Word. So I stopped, and I hope I said it kindly. In my mind, I said it kindly, and I said, look, I can't let that go. I nearly fell out of my chair when you said what you did, and I explained the thought. And I was asking for a Bible text. Actually, Brother Ed said, show us a Bible text, and we'll accept that. And no Bible text was shared. Well, notice what this says. Again, be ready in season, out of season, convince, rebuke, exhort. Well, if I don't say something when something's wrong, then I'm not following what this is telling me. If we see something wrong, we have to address it. And I say that if something comes out of my mouth from here, and we all feel this way, all of us who speak here, if we say something, then we need to know that that's not right if I say something wrong. And I've even said, look, if I say something wrong when I'm up there, stop me in the middle of what I'm saying and let's correct it. Because I don't want to mislead anyone. So when I look around and I see people promoting things that we know are false, it bothers me. But I don't go up to that person and say, hey, what are you doing celebrating? No, I don't say anything until the timing is right. If they ask me, hey, what do you think about this? Now's the time. Timing is everything. So again, Preach the word, verse 2, be ready in season and out of season. What does that mean? That means be ready all of the time, at every moment. And it doesn't mean that I go and I push my beliefs on people. But what do we pray for? I'll never forget when Ed prayed for me one time, because I told him, I said, sometimes I'd say too much. I let too much go. I'm like a fire hydrant. People want a sip of water and I just, And so he prayed that I would know what to say and what not to say. And I thought, wow, that's a beautiful way to put it, to know what to say and what not to say. And that's a common part of our prayers now. So be ready in season, out of season. Convince, rebuke, exhort with all long suffering and teaching. So we have to be patient with people. I'm glad that you guys have been patient with me, because sometimes I think differently and I fall back to things, and this happens. It happens to all of us. Something comes to our mind, maybe that we've been taught all of our lives, and it's hard to get rid of. So we have to be patient with others. Verse 3, for the time will come, and I believe this is now, the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but according to their own desires, because they have itching ears, they will heap up for themselves teachers. And we see this constantly. Well, I don't want to go there because they're not saying what I like to hear. Well, the Bible says things to me all the time that I don't necessarily like to hear. I've had to make drastic changes in my life and give up things that I enjoyed doing. And believe it or not, now that I look back on it, I think, why did I enjoy that? I don't understand my enjoyment at the time, but I was in a different mindset. If we take on the mind and the heart of Christ, our thinking changes. Just like my friend that smokes. Take on the mind of Christ, your thinking will change. He will help you get rid of that vice, whatever it is. If we have a doctrine that's near and dear to us, it might be something that I've believed all of my life, and I don't want to let this go because I firmly believe it. Well, do I want to believe what I want to believe, or do I want to believe the truth, which is in Christ Jesus? And we have to be willing. I've had to let go of things that I believed once that now I don't. And now I'm grateful. And now when I read the Bible, it means so much more to me. Things stand out that before I would have glossed right over. I'd have never seen that verse. This happens constantly. Itching ears. The Bible that I grew up with says they will hire people to tickle their ears. Tell them what they want to hear. Make it feel nice. Make it sound good to me. Well, the gospel is good news. But if I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing, it's not such good news. If I have something in my life that prevents me from having a relationship with God. And again, I want to go back to this because so many people say, well, why would God demand that I conform to His way? I had somebody ask me that. And I asked him, I said, are you married? Yeah. Did you have to conform to convince your wife to marry you? Was there anything you had to give up? Oh, yeah. What's the difference? It's a relationship, isn't it? It's a relationship. And if we have a relationship, we have to be liked and do the things that that person expects us to do. If I'm going to live in my parents' home, I have to live by my parents' rules. Well, God has given us this beautiful place to live, and we have to live by the things that He says are best for us. Our parents are never going to do anything. Good parents will never do anything to harm their children. All of the rules that they make are for your good and for your safety and for your protection and to make you a better person. It's no different with our Heavenly Father. Verse 4, and they will turn their ears away from the truth and be turned aside to fables. This happens, I see this on almost a daily basis, where somebody, they don't want to hear what the Bible says. They'd rather just, I'm comfortable where I am. I just want to believe what I believe. And, just let me alone. Well, when they do that, let's leave them alone. Because something in their life might change. We always have to treat them with love and kindness, whether they agree or disagree. Because something in their life could change, and they might come back and say, I remember some of the things we talked about. and it had an impact on me. I could never get that out of my mind. And they might come back, and they might want to study again. And again, I'm not saying you got to come back here. Come back here, right? Come back to God's Word. And a lot of people, when they give up on these things, they don't read the Bible anymore. Verse 5 says, "But you be watchful in all things, endure afflictions, do the work of an evangelist, fulfill your ministry." Do the work of an evangelist. An evangelist, an evangelizer is somebody who actively proclaims. You know, you'll hear some people are pastors, which is more like a shepherd. Some people are ministers, which can minister privately, and some can do more than one thing. And then some are evangelizers, which they're just eat up with it, and they just want to preach and teach, and they're fired up a little bit. And I guess I've never considered myself in a pastoral capacity, because that's a very specialized field. I've considered myself a minister of Christ because I love ministering and knocking on doors, but I also love evangelizing and getting people excited over the Word. And it's an amazing thing what God can do in us if we allow Him to. But St. Patrick, first of all, giving him sainthood is what the Catholic Church did. And it's a false sainthood. Patrick wasn't even his name. His name was Maewyn Succat. And it's amazing to me that the very things that we have studied the Bible and found it to believe, that this man believed hundreds of years ago. And yet they took his reputation and turned it into something that it wasn't. And this is what can happen. You know, if this world goes on for hundreds of years, there might be things that are told about us, or 50 years from now, when I'm gone, there might be somebody say, well, he believed this and this and this, and I might not have even believed those things. The best way to find out is to go to the source. So if we want to know what God wants for us, we have to go to the source, which is His Word. Jesus said these words, John 4:23, "But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For the Father is seeking such to worship Him." So, what will we do? Are we going to follow church tradition? Are we going to just follow a ministry or an organization? Are we going to say, oh, well, the ministry that I'm involved with teaches this? It doesn't matter what the ministry you're involved with teaches. What does God's Word teach? And what do you believe it says? This is where the meaning is. I can't drive that home enough. You know, as a ministry, we are just thrilled that there are people who have fellowship here and that come here and that join us for Zoom. And it's a blessing. But we always want to point you to the Father and His Son. That's where you have to be. You have to be rooted in Scripture, not in church tradition, not in anything we believe, not in anything that we're telling you. If we're preaching something and it doesn't come from here, then please let us know. Call us out. We have to be willing to study the Bible, take the time that's needed to read through, and not just a glossing over. I was talking to somebody just the other day, and we were looking at a text, and I pointed out a particular word, and they looked and said, I've read that many times. I've never seen that word. And it changed the whole meaning of the text. Changed the whole meaning. So as you study, be cautious, be careful, read carefully, and use instead of a paraphrase. Sometimes paraphrases are good to get a little clearer understanding, because sometimes they'll word things a little differently. But use a good translation of the Bible. And I guess the question is, are we studying the Bible to prove what we want it to say, or are we studying the Bible to see what God has to say? That's what makes the difference. And I have studied the Bible in my past because I wanted to prove what my church was teaching. But I praise God that He's broke me out of that mold. And we need to find the truth of God's Word, and we need to follow Christ wherever He will go. So again, I just want to reflect back. When we see our friends doing things, when we have something in our life that maybe is near and dear to us, ask yourself, would Jesus do this? You know, it's almost a cliche. What would Jesus do? You see that, WWJD. But, and some people, I think some people make fun of that, but it's a great question to ask yourself. What would He do? How would He respond? Why did He do the things He did? He never brought glory to Himself. He always pointed the glory to His Father. So when we receive praise, it's always nice to be commended about something. But truly, all of the glory goes to God. That's where it belongs. So again, we want to follow Christ wherever He may go. We want to stand on the truth of God's Word and not on what some ministry states. And we certainly don't want to follow the traditions of men in bringing falsehood into our belief structure and standing for things that we know are rooted in paganism. So this man, maybe you know a little more about St. Patrick, about St. Patrick's Day, the origins, where it came from, the fact that it's actually built completely on lies, completely misrepresenting a godly man who stood for Bible truth. And, you know, there were many people throughout the ages that this happened to, and the most prominent one is Jesus Christ. And He's the one we should be looking to.